What's going on, everybody? We've let the dust settle on free agency. Majority of it's officially over. Now feels like we can fully assess updated depth charts, the latest depth charts from a fantasy perspective, who benefited, who might have taken a hit in value. We're going to go through all of it. We've got the AFC South today. Going to take a look at that division. Decent amount of movement across those four teams. Not the busiest division, but enough to talk through. We'll get into all of it. We will start with the division winners. The Houston Texans made a big splash in the form of a trade. Couple of trades, actually. And we'll tie that together along with free agency. Will, any thoughts? Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I
On the
mean,
Texans.
Joe Mixon, Singletary finished the year out pretty decently for them.
Pretty good, yeah.
But Joe Mixon, just from a talent perspective, is an upgrade. Definitely brings in more reliability as far as 3-down back type play. They only gave up a 7th for him, which, in today's running back market, with him being, I think he's 27 or 28 years old. Yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon, for his value, it is. They were really good last year. But Cincinnati, I mean, Burrow presumably healthy going into next season, unlike this last year. So I don't know. I think things are looking good for him. I think it's pretty I don't say lateral, but like maybe a slight tick down, but we'll see if Stroud doesn't have a sophomore slump, but he is ADP is 66. So, looking in the mid 6th round there, I do like that.
For Mixon,
sure.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would take that.
I do like that. And then, Noah Brown resigns. He's the third wide receiver there, behind the two big Nico and Tank Dell. So yeah, and then regarding the other trade with the picks, hard to really analyze until the draft. But what are your thoughts on those moves?
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with Mixon. Probably has another couple of years of solid production and in a offense that is ascending. They addressed offensive line, which was something that they needed to.
Yeah.
So they add more assets. Second round, they add a second round pick and then a couple more picks down the line with the pick trade. So, could be some offensive line help ideally, which is something again that they need. If they do that, stock up even more so on Mixon. Good landing spot as he continues his career, going from one, year in, year out contender to what looks to be possibly another one in Houston. So I like that spot. I do. That's about it from a free agency and or trade perspective from Houston, I think.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say otherwise was, does this effectively kill any Dameon Pierce value for you? Or are you, I mean, for me, Joe Mixon's not been an injury concern, really.
No.
Pretty standard running back where he might miss a game or two. Just, a little nicked up, but not anything you're looking at season long. So he's left for dead, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he was on kickoff duty by the second half of the season or the latter third of the season.
Yeah.
So he was hardly even getting complimentary snaps behind Devin Singletary.
Right. Yeah, it was losing work at the end of the year.
Losing. Yeah, doesn't, his role changed to special teams, essentially. So, I mean, Mixon coming in, no, not a ton of confidence of any kind for Dameon Pierce, even at his extremely depreciated cost, ADP of about 200 last year. He was a 4th round pick. Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of if anything were to happen to Mixon, sure, that is as free gets from a running back.
I'm not counting on it though. He's not been an injury concern. He is a 3-down back. So yeah. What about Indy? Colts have been kind of quiet, but
Joe Flacco comes in to back up Anthony Richardson. who figures to be on track as of right now to start week 1 for the Colts. Injury occurred relatively early in the season. They've had plenty of time for rehab and getting him right for the 2024 year. So Flacco goes back to being a backup. They retain their wide receiver 1, who was a top 10 wide receiver for fantasy purposes last year, Michael
I'll
Pittman.
double check that. I
I
believe
believe I'm
so.
I believe I'm not off base with that one. Continued to play well even with Gardner Minshew stepping in as the quarterback for the Colts. He moves on. So Flacco takes the Minshew job. Zach Moss departs, again, goes to Cincinnati. So, Jonathan Taylor, there were some contract disputes last year, got on the field late, dealt with some injuries in between returning to the team eventually, week 4, week 5 of the season, I believe. So, a year removed from those off-field distractions, have to imagine this goes back to being Taylor's backfield a little bit more definitively, with Anthony Richardson being the running threat as opposed to a more traditional backup running back like a Zach Moss.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's a stock up for Taylor. And then obviously we just want, forget fantasy. We just want to see Anthony Richardson back in there because he was
Yeah.
in we didn't see him much, but he was electric when we did see him.
He had those moments. Yeah. And I did check. Pittman was actually wide receiver 15 in half PPR. He
Okay.
did have a shit ton of receptions though. So he was number 4 in the league in that. So he just only had 4 touchdowns. So sort of a low in that regard. But he big move for them to re-sign him,
Bring
get
him
him
back.
a
Yeah.
3-year extension, over 20 million a year. I do think the Zach Moss heading out is a little tick up for Flacco. We did sort of see their shared usage. Even down the,
Taylor.
yeah, I'm saying Zach Moss leaving is a tick up for Taylor. He's
Okay.
ADP 15, so top of the second round. That's probably accurate. I know receivers are definitely going earlier
Yep.
this year, but he is going as running back 6. I probably like him
I think
better
I'm
than
fine with that.
I think I mean, we don't have to get into the nitty
Sure.
gritty too much. I think I'd take him over Gibbs. I think Gibbs is a little high for me. I do love Gibbs's talent, but
Mm-hmm.
um,
I'm with
I
that.
could I quote unquote reach for him at the turn, and pair him with either go get my 2 running backs and just go, running back stout to start the draft or pair him with a receiver. But yeah, I like Taylor going into this year. He's got the contract, and Moss being gone now, it's sort of, confirmed he's going to be their workhorse.
After the off-field stuff last year, yeah, he should be wheels up on Taylor and Richardson alike,
Yep.
for the Colts as they move forward. Let's kick it down south to Jacksonville. They've had a couple of transitions, or they will be dealing with some transitions on offense this year.
Definitely. Yeah, they bring in Gabe Davis, which was interesting.
Interesting move.
Yeah, I guess the thought I'm thinking is, they lose Calvin Ridley to free agency. They did have that conditional pick to Atlanta from that trade that would have turned into a second if they had re-signed him during the season. So I believe that they had, gone into this being like, we're not going to give up the amount of, I mean, we saw what Calvin Ridley got paid, which we'll get to him on the next team here, but Gabe Davis, I'm not a Gabe Davis guy, never have been, but good for him, 39 million. I think it's a lowering of Trevor Lawrence from Ridley to Gabe,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
probably a lowering of Gabe from Josh Allen to Lawrence. So just,
yeah. Also,
downgrades
yes.
in that regard. Are you at all inspired or anything by the Mac Jones trade, or is this just like a guy was a first round pick and maybe get him out of New England into a different atmosphere and have a guy to back up? Trevor Lawrence
Yeah.
isn't losing his job.
If Lawrence has to miss time, Mac Jones is, a good backup option to be able to pivot to. the idea there that if he does get in there, Jacksonville could flip him for more than they acquired him for.
Yep. What
So if you had so basically if you have Lawrence in Superflex and you want to protect your investment, a short-term move could be to try to acquire Mac Jones.
yeah.
Um,
What
as
about
far as this offense though, Christian Kirk missed time at the end of the season, so he'll come back and
what was his injury?
was it a core muscle?
Can't
The
remember off the
left
top of my head.
this was apparently a quote from him: left adductor, left ab off the bone, and then he had a right tear of his
Abdominal tear.
abdominal. That's right,
Yeah.
abdominal tear. That's right. uh Sounds a little gruesome. um
Yeah. Should be okay to start the season though.
should be fine to start the season. His ADP is probably going to be a little depreciated because of that injury.
It's not.
ADP of 56, so it's not. I guess we've baked in the fact that Calvin Ridley has moved on as well, and so Kirk is the de facto wide receiver one there.
Are you taking him that high? I mean, he did flash at moments and was clearly their wide receiver one. As far, or I don't say clearly was, but him and Ridley sort of
Had
had
some
this
good
weird
moments.
dynamic.
Yeah.
I wonder if those roles are more defined with Gabe being a definitive outside guy, Kirk being a Ridley is a little bit more fluid in regards to flexibility playing along the whole line, but not the line, but within the different receiver positions. I don't think Gabe's ever coming inside.
No,
So
Gabe is an outside guy who, you want him to the tough possession receive, tough, possession receptions and occasionally go for a bomb.
yeah,
He just has a lot of inconsistencies uh in his game.
yep.
And is he going to be asked to be the number one wide receiver in this offense to win on the boundary? I don't have a ton of confidence in that. If you figure Christian Kirk will be in the slot probably exclusively, and then Zay Jones will be the other guy on the outside.
Yeah,
I don't love that for Gabe Davis, and I don't love that for Trevor Lawrence as a trickle down as a result. So Kirk with an ADP of 56, I suppose, is fine. He had a real strong season the year prior in 2022. He had a good year in his first year in Jacksonville. So I guess it's warranted. It's fair, but we are 2 years and a nasty injury removed from that now. So, I'm up in the air on Kirk at cost. The rest of this Jaguars passing attack leaves a lot to be desired with the departure of Calvin Ridley, and it was inconsistent and choppy with him last year, and now they downgrade. So,
right.
sorry Jacksonville, sorry Jaguars fans, but I'm not at this point in time really feeling that offense. Travis Etienne is great, but that's not a free agent topic
Yeah.
at this particular moment.
Weird turn too, because I feel like last year they were looked at as a bit of the darlings on offense, just getting
They were
all those people in and getting Lawrence into the post Urban Meyer part of his career.
They looked like
But
the
yeah,
team in the AFC South on paper this time last year.
I don't know. We'll
It's
see
funny
if they
how
bounce back. What about
quickly things change.
Tennessee, one of the busier teams, I'd say, in free agency in general, definitely the most in this division. What do you think about what they've been bringing in so far?
A lot of money doled out. A lot of
Yeah,
money doled out to a couple of guys who I think have to do a little bit of proving it all over again. We just talked about Calvin Ridley. He goes from the Jags to the Titans, goes from Trevor Lawrence to Will Levis. Will share work. I believe they're going to bring DeAndre Hopkins back and Traylon Burks. But obviously they paid him wide receiver one money. So,
oh yeah,
I mean, I guess, so
92
Ridley
million.
slots in at the top of that depth chart, just not sure what that looks like with Will Levis and his first full off season going in as the starter.
Right.
He looked decent. Levis did here and there when he got the opportunity. But still some questions to answer for Will Levis. It's kind of tough to put a whole lot on where we feel about Calvin Ridley at this particular moment in time, but they paid him to be their guy. So
Yeah.
an ADP of about 61. I think that's pretty generous for Calvin Ridley, given the season that he had last year. He turned it on eventually, and the numbers were there at the end of the day, but there were some real inconsistencies with Calvin Ridley last year. Um, I don't
Where do you
necessarily
think he
know.
finished?
Sorry.
Do you know? I was going to say, where do you think he finished last year in terms of wide receiver ranking?
I guess he must have finished. He must have finished as a wide receiver better than just a wide receiver two. He had to have been top. Was he top 20?
Yeah, 17 ahead of
Okay,
Amari Cooper,
didn't feel like it, but it did
ahead of
happen.
Olave. Yeah, he had some. I mean, a big piece of that. He had some like flash games. You know, couple in the over 20 points, but yeah, a lot of down weeks of 4 and 5 catches for like 30 to 50 yards. It was just a very
It's like, what is
sort
going
of
on?
spotty year for him, but he did
Yeah.
have some explosive games, some multi touchdown games. So, um,
Maybe first full year removed from all his off field stuff. Like last now things are back to normal for him. That's like the glass half full. Maybe like last year was like the I'm getting back into the swing of things year, and maybe this year's a little bit more normal for him. But again, he's new offense, new quarterback. Uh,
what does this do
so
for Hopkins for you? I mean, we just said he's paid like a wide receiver one, but I mean Hopkins is older, obviously. Is he sort of on the end of his career in your
I
mind at this
mean,
point? Or
Hopkins was not too bad last year. Even 75 catches, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. I don't. He must have probably just missed being a top 20 receiver for the year.
hmm.
So he can still do it. He's getting up there. Now the second option for a rookie quarterback. Um, Maybe not as enthused with an ADP of about 75. I guess I'll say this. I like Will Levis with an ADP of 174. I mean, there's some good weapons to
Yeah.
throw the ball to. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, Traylon Burks has yet to really show a whole lot, but as a young wide receiver 3, you could do worse.
Yeah.
And then, I haven't even gotten to Tony Pollard as another free agent signing yet. I mean, he's a playmaker out of the backfield, proven pass catcher with Dallas. Looked like he maybe lost a step last year, wasn't as
Yeah, it was
effective,
weird.
didn't have as strong of a year as Tony Pollard was expected to have as the guy for the Cowboys. Didn't
Right.
necessarily meet expectations. Gets a new start in Tennessee. Tajay Spears is already there, and forced a committee with Derrick Henry last year. So I think he's more than earned the right to work in tandem with Tony Pollard, even though they gave decent money to him, 3 years, 21 million. That's a
Not nothing.
that's more than not nothing. That's a sizable investment in a running back, especially a veteran running back who was a little disappointing last year. So, I guess Pollard will get first crack based on that money, like follow the money. I guess Pollard will get first crack to be the guy, and Spears retains more of a satellite role that he's going to kind of have to wrestle
Yeah.
away from Tony Pollard over the course of the season. So, they're looking to add pieces around Will Levis. Again, I think I like Will Levis quite a bit with an ADP of around 175, but Pollard an ADP of 80. Not breaking the bank. Spears, about 15 to 20 spots lower with an ADP of 97. So about 17 spots lower. Might actually like Pollard with the ADP of 80, given the money that they gave him and the fact that, I mean, he was a second round pick last year. I know he was disappointing, but if he put up the same numbers, let's say he put up similar numbers this year to that he did last year with about a 7 round difference in cost.
Right.
I mean, this might be a case where I actually maybe like Pollard over the potential value, which is Spears, who I do like,
Yeah.
but they paid him good money. The Titans did.
This signing made my heart hurt. I've been gearing up for the departure of Derrick Henry, bringing Tajay Spears. I loved his talent out of Tulane.
Tulane.
Yeah.
Yep.
For some reason Tulsa was on my mind. I was like, no, it's like it's Tulane. But yeah, and knew he was gonna, be behind Henry that first year, but Henry probably leaving, and then he did, and then they went and brought in Pollard. Now, the silver lining here in my prediction, I guess, for this year, going into this year, is that we just saw Pollard. He ran for about the same amount of yards as 2022, but he did it on about 60 more carries. So efficiency plummeted. We did also see, 60 less yards on 16 more receptions. So just all around efficiency for him,
Yeah, it's
as
way
that
down.
workhorse back for Dallas just wasn't there. So I do wonder if Tennessee looks at that and says, hey, this guy, we did pay him $7 million a year, but he didn't really thrive in that role. And Dallas had a good offense last year. So
They did.
good O line. Tennessee's O line not very strong. One of the weaker points on their team. So I'm gonna assume that they are going to use these guys in 1A, 1B roles. In that case, I'm gonna take the later, Tajay Spears and kind of
Sure.
hope that he gets more of the touchdown opportunities. He's a little more versatile in my mind as far as Pollard more explosive and maybe does more with the lesser workload. But I'm actually gonna go ahead and stay in the flame, not the flame, stay in the my prediction here and my love for Tajay Spears. And although it takes a dip from where I had hoped he'd be as a bell cow running back, I do think he is potentially the guy that you're looking to get in this offense.
Certainly earned an opportunity to remain involved in this offense as more than just a complimentary piece. I like Tajay Spears quite a bit. And he like I said, there haven't been many backup running backs in previous years that forced a split with Derrick Henry. And I know he's older at this point, but Spears still did something that other backup running backs for the Titans had failed to do in years past. So he's certainly earned his opportunity. And you can go that route over, getting him 17, 18 spots later than Tony Pollard. I guess I don't mind either investment. Pollard with an ADP of 80 is not too bad for me.
Maybe buy Tajay low with the maybe you get the Spears
Sure.
owner is disappointed in this news
Sure.
and they're not considering that and they're sort of like maybe you can get him for maybe you can try to get him for a third. I don't know if you will, probably not, but
Probably not, but you might be able to
a
get
late
you pull up
second
like a late
maybe.
set like at the 210 if you're
You're
looking
a
if
contender
you
and
have
you
like
have a late second,
yeah
maybe
late second round pick,
get
but
a
yeah.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I wanted
Yep.
to just bring up here, Ryan Tannehill, free agent, not re-signed. Malik Willis, is he even in the NFL anymore? I mean, that guy stunk.
He's still on the team. He's still on the roster, but it's things are going south for Malik.
Mason Rudolph, we saw
Yep.
him continue to hold down the starting position into a playoff game for Pittsburgh while they had a traded Pickett, but he played decently enough to earn himself almost 3 million this year as presumably the backup for Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Will Levis to me has not solidified himself in this role like a Richardson or Stroud has. Obviously, a Bryce Young.
That's fair.
But is he someone that you're throwing maybe a fourth rounder at the owner and saying like, hey, like try to get another guy that you could easily see taking snaps at some point in the season, like a narrative where
Yeah.
Levis either gets hurt or isn't
Doesn't
performing up
perform.
to
Yeah.
the hopes.
Could. Yeah, that's a viable option. Like you said, Rudolph stepped in for Pittsburgh and third string quarterback, all things considered, he played pretty good. He didn't do too poorly. So
Yeah,
super flex dynasty asset for for anybody like who's a
exactly.
contender looking for quarterback depth, which is something that you can always use.
Always use. Yep. I'm
Uh
wondering if his name is just so like thought of as nothing, but you get him for a few starts down the stretch could be helpful on a
sure.
late bye week or an injury on your team.
We'll
Um,
sell a fourth round pick for that type of scenario.
and then even if you don't end up needing him and he does take that role over, someone will need him. You could easily get a high third for a guy that's starting. Maybe, someone's real desperate, throws you a player, a piece in there with it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or something like that. So I wouldn't be too good throw an offer at the Mason Rudolph owner for that
Sure.
reason.
Yeah. Backup quarterbacks in Superflex are
Yep.
almost as valuable as, your depth running backs in
Yeah.
other leagues.
Yep,
It's just
for
that's
sure.
the backup quarterbacks have value. There's no question, and there's quite a few new ones in this division.
Yes.
Joe Flacco, Mac Jones. The conversation is sort of similar, maybe a little bit more so for Jones. Flacco's near the end of his career, but hey, a job is a job. So
Absolutely.
decent number of backup quarterback changes here in the AFC South. I think that wraps up this division, unless there are any final thoughts. We'll continue to go around the NFL, look at every division from a free agency perspective, free agency or trade perspective, and what the fantasy fallout is. So appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned for more. Thanks.
Take it easy, guys.